I'll give you a minute.
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready?
Yeah.
Have at her.
All right.
This meeting is now called to order.
Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, January 3rd, 2018 at 9 a.m. Mr. Kwiatkowski, Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon. Please rise for a moment of silent meditation and Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of minutes from the meeting of December 20th, 2017, and bills for payment on December 29th and January 5th, 2018. Ms. Allen, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. We'll now have the reading of the resolution appointing Mrs. Arrington Council President. By Mr. Witherspoon and seconded by Mr. Kwiatkowski, resolved by the Council of the City of Erie that City Council nominates Mrs. Sonia Arrington as City Council President for 2018. Ms. Allen? Yes. Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mr. Kwiatkowski. Congratulations, Sonia.
Yep.
On behalf of City Council, we would like to dedicate this to you for your year of service and a great president for us. Thank you.
I'll just say a couple of words. I don't need a microphone. Can you hear me okay? I know that leaving is always a sad thing, but one thing that's great about our country is the transition of authority and power. How we peacefully do it. We just had a new mayor. Now we're having a new council direction with a new president. And I think it's important that we take note of that. I thought this was a great year, and I want to thank everybody that was on council with me last year. Mr. Mursky, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington, Mr. Winarski. I think we did a lot of great things this past year, and we've got a lot more that are still in the hopper that hopefully the new administration is going to take out of that dark hole they existed in and get them out there and get them passed. And I look forward to the two new members. I hope they remember that they represent the whole city and that they do their due diligence and vote for the common good of the people and this great city. Because it is a great city. And we're in tough times, but we're going to get out of this. And I think under the leadership of Mrs. Arrington, I think it's good that we have a new direction, and I'll be glad to serve under her, and I'm sure she'll do a great job. Thank you.
Mr. Witherspoon now has a presentation to make.
I would like to ask the Erie Housing Authority and their representatives to come forward, please.
You guys got a smile, though.
Turn around, face. See, Bishop, yeah, all right. This is the only time I can tell Bishop what to do. You're in my house now.
Yes, sir.
I won't catch it on Sunday, though. Ladies and gentlemen, have you heard me say this before on supporters of the Summer Basketball League? And 27 years ago, Erie Housing Authority was the first organization to jump on board, give us the support that we needed. And we have appreciated that from day one. Not only the support, they built and provided for us the fence that we currently have. And the grounds surrounding the courts belong to the Erie Housing Authority, and they maintain that at no cost to the league. And the league's job is to make sure the trash is picked up after every game. This past season, the 27th year of support, we had 316 individuals. Now, the Housing Authority sponsors 4 teams in all 4 age groups. Year before last, they won 2 divisions. Mr. Mike almost did a cartwheel. A young lady who's not here, Sherry, she did a cartwheel and pointed her finger in my face and said, I told you you did it. But that's okay. 316 last year. We anticipate more students this year. So again, Mr. Bishop, as chairman of the board, we present to you and Mr. Mike this plaque, and we hope you place it somewhere where it can be seen by those who come into your building. And we have a new employee, Mr. Mike. Mr. Mike Fraley is the executive director of the Erie Housing Authority, and he'll introduce the new employee.
I'd like to introduce Dusty Dennis. She's our new deputy director. She comes from McKean County. She was the executive director of that housing authority for 10 years. She is a longtime Erie resident, graduated from Iroquois High School, and she's going to do a great job for us. She has some calendars that show the importance of what we believe in. We believe in partnerships. So what we want to do is distribute these calendars and show everybody the partnerships, including what we have with Councilman Witherspoon. And it goes with that philosophy that together we can make a huge difference in our communities. And working with Mr. Witherspoon, we've made some nice differences together.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well, we want to, on behalf of the Erie Housing Authority, we wish to thank City Council and thank our astute liaison and longtime statesman, the person of Councilman Melvin Witherspoon, who we will see on Sunday morning in church. But I want to thank you because of the work that you have done within this community for a very, very long time. One of the, in my opinion, one of the unsung heroes in our community, and you have taken many young people. You have paid for them to go to school, to go to college. You have been a mentor, a father to them. And I personally want to thank you for the work that you have done within this community. You have obliterated a lot of violence within our community, a lot of gun violence with the policies and procedures that you have implemented with the basketball league. And so on behalf of Mr. Mike Fraley and the entire board of the Erie Housing Authority, we accept this award, and we wish to thank you for the work that you have done, and thank City Council, and congratulations to our new president of City Council, Mrs. Arrington. We go back a long way. I think I married her and her husband years ago, and it's just wonderful to see you and wonderful to see all of our council, and Happy New Year to all of you. And Liz, and we wish that God will bless you in a very, very real and satisfying way, and we look forward to working with you. God bless everyone.
Thank you, sir. Welcome again, my sister. Thank you so much.
Hey, good to see you all. Sure, your first name again, I guess.
We didn't know you were that old. Remember, I was a baby.
You
brought it with you.
I'm ready.
That's supposed to stay.
Excellent. Thanks for asking. You too.
Do we have anybody here for repository sales? Come to the mic. We need your name and address and the address of the property that you wish to purchase and what you'll be doing with the property.
Okay, good morning. My name is Diane Hammond. I live at 3519 Davison Avenue, and I want to purchase a property that's next to property that I own at 414 and 416 East 23rd Street. And eventually I'd like to put a garage on it. Off-street parking is horrible there, especially in the winter, so that's what I'd like to do with it.
Okay. Have you been maintaining this
Yes.
property?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. How long? If you don't mind asking?
I've owned the property next to it since 2005.
2005.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there any other council members who have any questions for her?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. What is on the property you own there now?
Oh, it's a house.
You have a house there now, so you want an adjacent lot, per se. Okay, very good.
Okay. Well, thank you, and we'll get in contact with you at a later date. To
Okay,
let you know.
thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Joseph Hosey. I am representing Joseph McCormick Construction. I'm the vice president there, located at 3340 Pearl Avenue in Erie. We currently own property on 17th Street. There are three properties up for repository sale. Along McClellan, there are no property addresses that I could find. They were just lots 57, 58, and 59 adjacent to our property. Our property is a facility where we maintain and store our equipment throughout the year, especially in the wintertime. The three properties along McClellan are currently without structures, a bit overgrown. Because we haven't owned the properties, we haven't really done much in the way of maintaining them. We would like to acquire them and kind of consolidate them into the areas that we're maintaining our equipment now, clear the underbrush and kind of grade it so it's a mowable grade.
Okay. What would you like to do with the properties once you?
Right now, if we can consolidate the areas, they're kind of broken up between, there's like a lot we own, then one of the lots for purchase, and then two lots that we own. We'd like to kind of consolidate it and kind of better utilize it, like during the year to park our equipment. And in the future, we're considering putting up a garage for winter storage that we would be able to park some of the equipment inside.
Okay. Anyone else on council have any questions for?
Mrs. Arrington, Miss President, Madam President. I have to get used to saying that. It sounds good, though. I just want to thank you for McCormick Construction being a part of our city and a partner in our city and providing jobs in our city. And I'm personally in favor of this because it will allow you to expand. So thank you for your investment in the city.
Thank you, sir, and we'll be in contact with you at a later date. Thank you. Are there any more suppository sales? Are there any more suppository sales? One more time, are there any more suppository sales? That being noted, we will go right to citizens to be heard.
Good morning. My name is Freda Tepfer. I'm a certified orientation and mobility specialist, and I live at 1738 West 23rd Street in Erie. Congratulations, Liz and Kathy. The only regret I have is I'm not up there to join you, but in the months I've gotten to know you, Kathy, it's almost as if I won. Not that we're the same, but I have so much respect for how I've gotten to know you since the primaries. And Liz, as you know, I have a lot of respect for everything that you do. And it's nice to see you here too, Ms. Lamas. We're looking forward to all of us in the city a much more open administration, and the same with the legal representation. We hope it doesn't remain the black hole it's been. I do want to say that I hope that in the opening of processes, one of the things included is the ability for people to be aware of and to have a chance to apply for committee authority, just appointments to be involved in the city. It seems to happen in a very closed situation. There should be a public process to apply for it. I also want to issue you guys a challenge. If you look at the current website and try to find the agendas for the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board, it is a totally unintuitive process. We should have a website that is usable by people. There should be a place on the website where people can find out when the meetings are. Hopefully, I believe that's going to happen, but hopefully it will. One of the things I want to talk to you about is construction and access for pedestrians, especially pedestrians who are blind and visually impaired. There are 3 independent travelers who are blind or visually impaired who live on the east side of State Street. I know them because I run into them during my Meals on Wheels. And I drove my former coworker into work this morning, and she informed me that, in fact, there are 4 blind and visually impaired independent travelers living specifically in Schmid Towers. That's of importance because of the failure of Erie Insurance to provide reasonable accommodation during their construction process. I've been working with Leanne Parmenter, and she's been extremely cooperative and helpful, but the Publication 213, the state publication that the city uses, says that warning needs to be detectable. What they're currently doing is not detectable, and it needs to be placed, it has to be intelligible to people. So if there are signs, they need to provide audio. There is audio equipment to tell people how to do access. And we can create a business for somebody who can provide that. But people need to know at the point that they can make an intelligent decision where else to cross the street, rather than be in the middle of the block and run into a barrier and say, now what do I do? So I really hope that Erie Insurance and Gannon specifically, and other things around town, that we are more respectful of our blind and visually impaired travelers, and as well as all people with disabilities. Really, the city should have a bicycle pedestrian committee. There is none, and just that ADA committee that meets quarterly does not constitute a bicycle pedestrian committee. I parked on 8th and Myrtle and 8th and Sass, and I want to commend Gannon for the good job they did of snow removal, and I want to mention the First Methodist United Church that managed to plow their walkway in front of their door and their driveway and left berms blocking the sidewalk. on 7th Street. That's not acceptable. If a business, a church, an entity, even people can afford to get their driveways cleared, they should not block the sidewalk. Those berms take a very long time to melt, and I want to commend the city for taking care of the sidewalks. I want to point out that at 10th and State on the southeast corner, it's impassable for people trying to cross from north to south. That's not acceptable. I mean, we want to have a pedestrian-friendly city. I want to alert the city. I understand that there's going to be some kind of a study session for the council on the port plan, and that should be a public plan. I'm running out of time, but I want to say that they say they want to have a zero-lot buildings at the corner of the Bayfront Parkway and State Street. The problems with snow removal that occur downtown are where there's a zero-lot line construction. So State in the Bayfront Parkway is not an appropriate place to do that. Thank you. Congratulations.
Good morning, Art Leopold, 5341 Apple Grove Lane. I want to first welcome everyone, the new administration, new councilwomen, Ms. Shaw, Ms. Allen, and congratulate Ms. Arrington on being president of council. I appreciate very much the tone that Joe Schember has set for this new year of inclusion and the appreciation of diversity. I think it's very important. I think we're getting off to the right start and do appreciate that. And so I welcome this transition and the opportunity to have a new start. I'd ask that you please vote yes on Council File number 15612, which is the marijuana possession procedure. This is something that I've been advocating for a long time, and I appreciate the opportunity. This comes up for the first reading, and I'd like to see a yes vote on that. I also like what I hear from Chief Spitzarni regarding the ideas of involving a juvenile connection in order to build relationships and build trust with the young community. I think it's very important, because if we can build those bridges early, I think we can avoid a lot of problems as time goes on. I also want to again support Council President Arrington's idea of the Citizen Police Review Panel. I think that's something that would be helpful for this city, and I'd like Council to strongly consider that. I also stand with the NAACP, Erie County United, the African American Concerned Clergy, Reverend Harris, Reverend Mock, Reverend Snyder, and a lot of the community in asking Council to consider, again, a public meeting regarding the McBride Viaduct. I think that's something that we need in order to air the current ideas, the current facts regarding that situation. I think that's very important, if nothing else, to settle those people that have been long-standing in promoting rebuilding that edifice rather than tearing it down. I think that's something that would be owed to the community. You know, even Charles Buki and a Milwaukee mayor chimed in and said to build those virtual bridges between the north, the Bayfront, and the south area on the east side is very important, and to tear down something of a physical structure that connects those two, that creates a safe connection. I think we need to take another look, and would certainly appreciate that. And again, thank you very much, and we look forward to New Year. You're off to a great start.
Are there any more citizens to be heard? Are there any more citizens to be heard? One last time, are there any more citizens to be heard? Okay, Rose, that takes us into the ordinances.
Yes. Ordinances for final passage. Council File 15610, Official Ordinance Number 1, 2018. An ordinance amending Part V Traffic Code Title 5 Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Article 521 Parking Generally, Article 523 Parking Meters, and Article 530 Immobilization of Vehicles by increasing penalty provisions, redesignating off-street parking facilities, authorizing the issuance of parking permits, deleting reference to the City of Erie Traffic Court, and adding Article 531, Administration Reimbursement.
Madam President.
Yes.
Just to speak on this, about 2 years ago, I put in the resolution requesting the solicitor's office to draft up new parking regulations so that we could modernize our parking in the City of Erie, allowing you to pay with cell phone and credit card. And this council and the previous council was on board 100%. And the tough thing was figuring out a mechanism of how to make it happen so that we weren't gouging the taxpayers, but at the same time paying for these advancements, because these kiosks cost money. Everything costs money, and how are we going to pay for it? And it took a while, almost 2 years, between the solicitors and figuring the finance department to do this. And this is the fruition of a lot of hard work of a lot of people. And I want to thank the Parking Authority for their cooperation on this, and the previous administration and council for staying with it. So oftentimes, government moves slowly, but by passing this today, come July rather, you'll begin to see kiosks around, starting with the area in front of the courthouse, allowing you to pay using modern technology. And I think that this is progress for the city. It's good for our citizens and good for visitors that come to our town. And I just want to thank everybody for that. So I'll be voting yes.
All right, by Mr. Mursky, second by Mr. Kwiatkowski, that council file ordinance bill number 15610, and now known as official file ordinance number 1, 2018, be finally passed by the City Council. Ms. Allen?
Yes. I like saying yes. Sometimes I'll say no.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mursky, Mrs. Shaw, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council passed official file ordinance number 1, 2018, finally by yea 7, nay 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 15611, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Erie, Pennsylvania. By Mrs. Arrington, second by Mr. Witherspoon, the council file ordinance number 15611, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council.
Madam President, I call for the choke board.
Okay.
So yours are backwards. Don't use the colors. Use the violet. Yes.
Sing up in arms.
Whereas avenues are heathen.
About the right people.
So you're going to don't believe what it says.
Okay.
No, no.
We'll give
She's
it
got to turn it on here.
How do we turn it? Right here?
That's just that
Yeah.
toggle switch.
Okay.
No, you hit it and it'll.
What's that other one?
It should light up. Okay.
She didn't have time to take the course yet.
I know, right?
Training session. Switching
I don't know.
Where's the?
it doesn't.
Oh, there's a switch behind there, that flag, I think.
Switch behind there, that flag.
Yeah, the flag.
How about this one?
Now try.
We probably have to, let's re-vote and try it.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Is it on yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Put your left.
Yeah, you're the only one that's not lit.
I did, I guess.
Yeah, they reset.
There you go. Now
Are we ready?
Now flip the switch.
Sonny's got
Everybody?
Flip the switch, son.
Okay.
No, you.
Mel voted no. Wrong. No, I thought you sponsored that. Wrong.
I'm like council over the street. Tell you, Mike.
I meant yes.
Okay.
So yes.
I'm sure everybody
Hit
meant
the-
yes.
hit the
We'll
clear
know that.
Another practice round.
Yes.
Okay.
Son, you hit the clear button when you're done.
That one.
Okay. We might have to start using this a little bit more to.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we,
We'll have to
like,
practice.
change our dots, though, so that the green says yes and the
Green does say.
green says no on mine, so. I don't think this would cost a lot of money to, I have some dots at home I can bring in, so I'm happy to contribute.
I think this is why we mostly don't use the tote board. Okay.
Yay. Thanks, Mel.
I love you too.
City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15611 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Always good to practice, though. Council file number 15612, an ordinance amending Part 7 of the City of Erie General Offenses Code by adding Article 714, marijuana possession procedure, adding Section 714.01, definitions, adding Section 714.02, possession or smoking of a small amount of marijuana, possession of drug paraphernalia, adding Article 714.03, enforcement, and adding Article 714.99, penalties.
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Murphy.
I just wanted to speak on this. I push this forward and in response to concerns from the community about marijuana possession, and while the number of people that are charged with marijuana possession in the city is relatively low, for those that are charged, it affects them greatly. When you are charged with that misdemeanor, it doesn't allow you, it prohibits you then from receiving student aid, financial aid for college, from joining the military. It can exclude you from that, and it just shuts a lot of doors. And so what this does is it allows marijuana possession will still be a crime. However, the crime will be in the summary offense, not the misdemeanor offense, which will allow you to pay your fine and then go on with your life without a lifelong sentence of student aid denied, military service denied, and closing opportunities for you for the rest of your life. Many municipalities across Pennsylvania have already done this. We are not an early adopter. Philadelphia's had it for 2 years, Pittsburgh for a year, York, Harrisburg, among others. And so I think it's just common sense ordinance, which will allow the crime to fit the punishment. And as you see, at the state level, we have medical marijuana coming in. And so just like we had prohibition in the 1920s, late 1930s rather, times have changed, and you know, alcohol became legal, and we see times changing with how people view marijuana, and the laws have to fit the times, and so that's what we're doing here. So I'm proud to support this.
Mrs. President?
Yes.
I'd like to support this this ordinance also. I think it's long overdue. As a person who served in the military with many young men and women that had problems when they left the service, to punish them for the rest of their remaining lives, or even like Mr. Mirsky said, young kids who made one mistake in their life, like many of us did, and maybe never got caught. When I was on the school board, we had a zero tolerance policy that everybody thought was a brilliant work of art. Everybody pushed it, only to ruin a lot of kids' lives by calling a box cutter a weapon when a kid who was working at a grocery store the night before forgot to take it out of his smock. And luckily the legislature saw their ways and amended it so that you could judge the student now based on what really happened, not a blanket rule. And I think for too long we've fought this war on marijuana it goes back to the 60s. And we just won't admit that the times have changed. And I think while we're not saying it's legal to possess it or sell it or use it while you're driving, I think the punishment should fit the crime. So I'm glad to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Well, I would like to thank Mr. Mirsky for bringing this up and putting it on the front table for us, because I know a lot of young people who are affected by this. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you, Mr. Mirsky.
Thank you.
All right, by Mr. Mirsky, second by Mrs. Arrington. The council file ordinance number 15612, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Schaaf?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15612 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council File 15613, an ordinance amending ordinance number 26/1958, the traffic code of the City of Erie by installation of a stop sign at one intersection at Norman Way and Elliott Road. By Mr. Witherspoon, seconded by Mrs. Arrington, the Council File ordinance number 15613, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Schaaf, yes. Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15613 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file 15614, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $15,000 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof. Contribution is from the Sisters of Mercy for the purchase of police equipment, fire prevention supplies, and equipment and winter maintenance equipment. By Mrs. Arrington, second by Mr. Mirsky, the council file ordinance number 15614, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by the City Council. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Mrs. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 15614 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Okay, that'll take us into new business, Madam President.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to move the balance of the agenda.
I second.
Okay. Any separations? Number 3 under new business?
Yes, number 3 under new business
The alley?
was pulled.
Okay. All right, then, moving the balance of the agenda, Ms. Allen, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Mirsky, Ms. Schaaf, Mr. Winarski, Mr. Witherspoon, Mrs. Arrington. Just to make a notation that resolution number 3 under new business is being pulled and will be reconsidered at a later time. That will take us to committee reports, Madam President.
Okay, I'll start with Mr. Mirsky.
Thank you, Mrs. Arrington. Just a few things to report. When the governor was in town and they announced all of those funding opportunities, Redevelopment Authority received $300,000 for urban redevelopment from the state, from RCAP money, and so they're excited about that. That'll give them some opportunities to rehab and refurbish some of the properties that they have and clean up some of the blight. I also wanted to publicly thank the Streets and Refuse Department. Throughout that whole storm, the Refuse Department never stopped picking up the trash, even on the worst evenings, coldest evenings, snowiest evenings, they were there. I do remind residents that this week and last week it was a day behind due to the holiday, but it wasn't because of the snowstorm that they did not pick up trash. Every garbage was picked up every night, and so for those workers in that department, I wanted to publicly thank them for being out there in that weather. And around the holidays, people accumulate a lot of boxes, a lot of refuse, and they picked it up diligently. And our streets department went above and beyond. We got as much snow in 1 week as we usually do in a whole year. And I understand people were frustrated, and I understand people are still frustrated, but we have to commend the workers in our streets department, our plow drivers, the graders. They did a phenomenal job. With over 300 miles of road, you think about how many times you plowed your driveway or shoveled your sidewalk during that storm. And then to think that these workers took care of all the streets. And was it perfect? No. When snow flies that fast and comes down that fast, it's not going to be perfect, because if a route takes 3 hours and it's snowing at 3 inches an hour, by the time you get back, it looks like you didn't do anything. But those workers worked very hard, and I wanted to thank them. And also remind people that Christmas trees will be picked up until the end of January by our refuse department. And then just for the administration, I received a phone call last night about residents blowing snow into the street right after their streets plowed. The guy, you know how you get it in your driveway. Well, it's the 900 block of East 32nd. They're blowing the snow right after it's plowed right back into the street, so it looks like it wasn't done. And they called the police, and they said, that they can't deal with it. It's not a city issue. But I think that, that's what the guy told me. I don't know if that's what really happened, but that's what I was told. But if we could check into that 900 block of East 32nd Street, I have the address. I don't want to say it on the air. I'll talk to you about it offline. But with people blowing snow into the street, just a reminder to all of our citizens, there is a lot of snow. Be respectful of your neighbors. If they plow it, don't put it right back where they plowed it. That's just the courteous thing to do. And with that, I just welcome our new colleagues, and congratulations to you, Mrs. Arrington, and welcome to the administration, new administration coming in. And we hope everyone had a happy new year, and we look forward to serving you this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
I don't have a committee report because I'm not on any committees yet, but I wanted to echo what Mr. Mirsky said about the great job that I think was done in snow removal. I did have one suggestion. In the midst of all the snowstorm, I just Googled smart city and snow removal, and I found an interesting story from it's called "In Snow Removal: A Model for Change" by a blogger who writes for governing.com. And the mayor of St. Paul, who I think is no longer the mayor, I don't know what happened with the election there. But after they had a particularly bad winter in St. Paul in 2013-14, brought together public-private partnership to kind of look at best practices for snow removal. And just having met some of the people who work for the city, I'm sure that they probably have some ideas on, even though we did a really good job, what could we do to improve? And I know this was hopefully every 500-year storm, but I like the idea of listening to citizens, not complain, but say, hey, if I were in charge, here's some ideas that maybe we could try. So I just wanted to offer that suggestion, and I have a copy of the story here if anybody needs a copy of it. I think I did post it on Facebook. But I might have just posted it to myself because to aggregate it, because I know sometimes if you post stuff on Facebook, people take it as an invitation to criticize instead of to have positive feedback. Thank you, Sonia. Next time, I hope maybe I'll have a committee report.
Okay, Mr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I'd like to thank the Erie Housing Authority for being present today. To accept that plaque on 27 years of support and a lifetime of support for our community. Secondly, I would like to congratulate Dave Mulvihill for directing the snow removal crew. He fell into the job and he fell into the snowstorm at the same time. But his crew worked very hard and very diligently, and they did an outstanding job. And I want the citizens to know, because we're on council, our streets do not get plowed first. And my neighbor wanted to know, you're a councilman, can't you get our street plowed? I said, we got to wait just like everyone else. And eventually they did get plowed. Of course, there's always a couple, well, I just did my driveway and now I'm blocked again. So, being a councilman, I took my snow blower and I cleaned it out and they were happy. Now, they own snow blowers too, but they didn't use them. But that's the way it go. Interesting thought hit me, the calendars that the Housing Authority provided for us. We ought to consider producing a calendar, council and administration at the end of the year on some of the major projects that we've done, some of the things we've passed. Sometimes you see Mr. Curtis Jones Sr. taking pictures for me, so I have a lot of pictures, and I'm sure there are other individuals who have taken pictures, and we can put together a calendar of what we did in 2018. And I'm not sure what the total cost would be, but we can have some made. Of course, you have Mayor Schimber on the calendar. You have President on the calendar. As the news media indicated, the first time in history, we had 3 women on council at the same time. So there's so many things that's going on that are positive. So maybe we can get together and begin work on it early and have it ready to go, if that's what the folks want. Madam President, congratulations. Welcome aboard, new members. We have 2018. We'll make it a good year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. And next we'll have Mr. Winarski.
Thank you, Madam President. Very brief as always. Brenda Sandberg, Executive Director of the Port Authority, will be meeting with Council at our next meeting in caucus just to give an overview of the master plan for the Port Authority. We didn't want to cut her short today. We wanted to do our due diligence, get a little more information, get some questions and answers. But she'll be meeting with Council in caucus at our next meeting. And then, like Ms. Teffer, there may be some public hearings and follow through on that. Just want to welcome our new council members. It's looking for a very productive year. Welcome aboard. Look very forward to working with you as well as the rest of council. The administration, welcome. I feel like I'm the older or the more senior guy here now, and I'm still a young buck. Aren't I, Cass? Mel? Cass?
No, you're getting,
anyway.
You're above 40.
Yeah.
Anyway, looking forward to a very productive, positive 2018 and beyond. I think we got a good crew in place. We just work together and let's accomplish some things. Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone.
Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you all for welcoming me onto City Council. And perhaps we can learn how to use this, because I think out in the audience it would be better visual and to understand, because when I was coming to meetings I didn't quite get it until someone explained that silence meant approval. So it's sort of nice having it up there. I just have to learn how to use it. So thank you, and I hope we have a peaceful New Year. And Freda, I like that you have the pedestrian understanding, because I too believe that we need to make sure that our streets are safe, and a good website is really needed as well. Thank you.
Mr. Kwiatkowski.
Yes, I too want to thank the Streets Department for their hard work. I saw their work firsthand at 3 a.m. As they went down through the east side with a large grader. And even though we don't normally do this, they took the time to clean out each person's driveway. And it was a great effort. And I have been to St. Paul and Minneapolis on a regular basis. I go there at least 2-3 times a year. Been to Chicago, and nobody does it as good as we do. I'm going to tell you that. They don't even use salt in Minneapolis. Because I've been on their roads where the things we do, we like to brag. And Curtis and I were down at a convention one time at the League of Cities. And the first thing out of their head was, if we have the convention up here and you have snow, what's going to happen? Nothing. When we close the city up, everybody's up at the mall the next hour. So we do pretty well. And what we take for granted is that even in this storm here, within about 2 hours or 3 hours, you could get around if you had to. Maybe your side street wasn't good. And for probably the only member on this council that actually, I'm taking liberty with this statement, being senior, I do remember the last storm of the century in 1956, and we did not handle it well. Of course, there are a lot of things that are working in our favor today. We have front-wheel drive cars. We have better plows, a better system. Back in 56, we didn't move. We really didn't move. And there's pictures of State Street with 5 feet of snow up on the main drag. Couldn't get down it. You couldn't move. Getting anywhere was a problem. If you lived down the county, you were probably in a real problem. And I think then we had, in a 24-hour period, about 24 or 30 inches of snow. Nothing close to this. So, I feel confident going forward we're going to have another storm of the century. We had some bad snow in the 70s, and I will say we handled it well, and I'm very proud of our workers. And I'd like to thank Team Rubicon for coming into the city. I plan on honoring them if I can still get a hold of them. I didn't have time to contact them. I love the fact that a bunch of my fellow veterans are still serving this great country and serving this community twice during its time of need. And I hope the administration thanks them. And I'd like to finally say thank you to the new incoming president. I know she's going to do a good job. It's been a pleasure dealing with her the last few years. And I know she's a very passionate lady, and she'll bring something new. And I'm glad to serve under her. And I'd like to thank the new administration coming in for actually starting to take an interest in council. I think if the two of us work together, I think we're going to get a lot accomplished. And with that, thank you.
Thank you. We have so much to be grateful for in 2018. I see change already. You know, even before the new year came in, especially when the snowstorm hit. You know, I seen neighbors out there helping neighbors. You know, we got some people out there that's lazy, don't want to get out and do nothing, but the majority of our citizens helped each other. You know, especially with the elders and the disabled people, you know, and I really admire that. And I just want to thank the Erie community for always coming together. And that's one thing that I could say about the Erie community. When it's needed, we do come together. You know, sometimes you got to learn how to agree to disagree, and I think we do that well most of the time. You know, and another thing I would like to congratulate our incoming mayor, Mr. Schimber, and his team. You know, I see the change already, and, you know, he's an amazing guy. His team is amazing, and I want to also congratulate our new city council women, and that really is really the most amazing thing. 3 women. We made history. So I have to tell my fellow gentlemen on city council, you got your hands full.
Tanya, I was raised with 2 sisters, so I know what.
You definitely got your hand full, and, you know, we're all on the same page. You know, we want to see change in our community. We have a great council. We had a great council before this council, but this one I think is really going to be really good, especially with those 3 women. So with that said, our controller, Teresa, do you have anything?
I have no report today.
Okay, thank you. Our new administration, Renee, you have?
I would just like to say that we're looking forward to working together, and we're very excited about the collaboration that can occur and then the ideas that will be brought forward and things that we can accomplish. So,
okay, our new solicitor, Mr. Ken.
Well, I'm not the new solicitor, assistant.
Assistant, I'm sorry.
Nevertheless, we're looking forward to working with the new council and the new administration, and we're going to do our best to liaison with people we need to liaison with, and the door's open.
Well, thank you. With that said, this is going to be a great year, and I wish everybody a happy new year. And can we have a motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
How do you do that? It's all you now.
Meeting is adjourned.
City Council adjourns at 10:05.
I know you wanted to hit no.
Ms. Arrington, Ms. Allen, Mr. Kukowski, Mr. Mursky, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Winarski, Mr.
Over here today.